Hey, nice to meet you. My name is Dario Tranchitella. I'm a technical advisor at Clastix, and today, in this virtual office hour, I'm going to show you how to enable a multi-tenant backup and restore strategy for your Kubernetes cluster using CloudCasa and Capsule. So, before proceeding, I would like to present you CloudCasa by Catalogic, and it's a really nice software as a service product that is enabling the creation, the management of backups and restores in a Kubernetes cluster. It means that you don't have to deal with Velero or any other external tool that are really complicated to manage the backup strategy of your Kubernetes clusters and of your data. And mostly everything will be managed using a nice UI that is really easy to understand, but obviously it means that you can also use the APIs. So it really depends on what you would like to use. So you can visit the website cloudcasa.io. You can get also a free sign up to test all the integrations. And keep in mind that with the latest release, CloudCasa has implemented also the RBAC. It means that you can configure the users which namespaces can use. So why I should do something like that? Because keep in mind that multi-tenancy in a Kubernetes cluster is a real hot topic. It means that if I'm a business unit, I have to manage just my namespaces. And also keep in mind that sometimes when you're dealing with Kubernetes clusters, backups and restores, you're operating the whole cluster. It means that you need full permission over the cluster, and it could be cumbersome from the security perspective. And here comes in play also Capsule. So what is Capsule? Capsule by Clastix is a multi-tenant operator that aims to solve the issue of the multi-tenancy. But before proceeding, let me create a playground. I'm going to create a Kubernetes cluster using Kind. Kind is Kubernetes in Docker. It means that we are spawning a Docker container on my local machine that is a Kubernetes cluster. It's fully compliant, so it should be something like a real production cluster. You can use CloudCasa and Capsule or any Kubernetes cluster, also the production ones, obviously. And in the meantime, let me try to introduce also the tenant abstraction. So with a tenant, we are trying to describe an abstraction that is a collection of namespaces, and these namespaces can be managed by the owners. So essentially you need an RBAC implemented in your Kubernetes cluster. You need an authentication system to authorize and identify the users. So everything is controlled by the RBAC. Let me check. We should have our Kubernetes cluster up and running. So far, so good. Everything is fine. So what we can do is to log in the CloudCasa website. And the first step that we have to do is to configure our workspace. So the organization must be different by the default one. I'm using Clastix because I'm working for Clastix. And after that, I can create a cluster. In configuration clusters, I'm clicking on add cluster and I'm going to use the name Kind. And I can create that. I'm going to receive a single YAML file manifest that I have to install in the cluster. So kubectl apply -f and blah blah blah, and we should have everything up and running. So what I'm going to get here, essentially I'm going to have a bootstrap pod that is installing all the complexity to manage the backups and restores of a Kubernetes cluster. And at the same time, we have to install also Capsule. I'm going to install it using helm upgrade install Capsule, classic Capsule in the Capsule system namespace. Okay. It can take some minutes, but in the meantime, what we can do is to move our context in the Capsule system, because I would like to provide you a brief overview of what is a tenant abstraction. So it's a single CRD that is managed by Capsule and is named tenant. And as you can see here, I can define which users are the owners of this tenant. It means that this user can manage all the namespaces that are belonging to this tenant. But before proceeding, obviously, we have to change the cluster ID. So I'm entering with VI, and I'm going to get the cluster ID that I get from the registration. And now what I can do is to issue kubectl apply -f tmp tenant, and here we are. So actually we got our tenant. Here it is. Let me check. 997, 997. So far so good. And now what I can do is to simulate a multi-tenant cluster. So using the impersonation offered by kubectl, I'm going to say that I'm Alice as group capsule.clastix.io, and I'm going to create some namespaces like solar development, then the staging and the production. These namespaces has been created and are registered in my tenant. That's great. But obviously, keep in mind that if I'm a root, I can define a backup in CloudCasa using the kind, test, and as you can see here, I can pick all the namespaces. And this is not really convenient, especially in a multi-tenant, because I can mess up the things. So what I would like to achieve instead is an add-on that is able to understand the multi-tenancy in the Kubernetes cluster, communicate with CloudCasa, and granting the required RBAC to the users to operate their backups and restores. And to achieve that, we developed together with CloudCasa this add-on. So this add-on is a connection between the capsule multi-tenancy logic and the RBAC logic offered by CloudCasa. To do that, we have to ensure to deploy in the capsule system an API token, because obviously otherwise we couldn't be able to communicate. You can ask for a API token in configuration API keys, new API key. Actually, I already have it, so what I have to do is to issue the creation of the API token. Let me check if we got the secret, and here it is, CloudCasa API token. And now what I have to issue is the following command. So I'm installing everything in the capsule system. It means that we are going to get a pod that is the add-on. Let's wait it to get it up and running. 1 of 2. 2 of 2. Yeah, that's great. Let me check also the logs, because I would like to play well. Oh, everything is fine. Okay. Now, what I can do is to simulate Alice, because with the kubectl I was using impersonation, but I can log in CloudCasa using the email address, the fake email address of Alice. So it was Dario Tranchitella, and let's go with the email. Keep in mind that this user has been created and invited before the registration, because otherwise it would have taken so many time with the email request and so on and so forth. But what's really cool is that I can create a Kubernetes cluster named, let's say, Nginx, just for the namespaces that I'm an owner. So solar development, production, and staging. The same namespaces managed by the solar abstraction. So what I would like to do right now is to deploy some workload in these namespaces, like creating an Nginx. Okay, so solar staging, and also for production, solar production. We should have in a glimpse our namespaces populated with some workloads. It could contain also persistent volumes, but keep in mind that I'm using kind, so I have a local path provisioner, so no real volumes, but just to get you the point that everything is smooth. Okay? Okay, we got our stuff, and what I'm going to do is to select all my namespace is here, clicking next, and I'm saying, okay, I can define this backup and I would like to run it. So right now we are creating a snapshot of this backup. As you can see here, we got our running job and we have to wait for it to get it completed. Completed. So far, so good. So let's play bad with this Kubernetes cluster. So what happens if I try to delete all the namespaces that are matching this label? Capsule.clastix.io tenant equals solar. I'm a bad guy, okay? Oops. I don't have any more my data. And I'm really sad for that. But luckily, I was using CloudCasa along with Capsule, and I can restore everything. Let's wait a few seconds, just to be sure that all the namespaces are going to be terminated. Oh, that's great. No more namespaces, and we got still our tenant. So what I can do, basically what I have to do is to issue a restore. So I'm saying that I would like to restore the backup named Nginx at this snapshot and saying, would you like to restore all the protected namespaces or just some of them? I would like to restore all of them. And keep in mind that I can also pick the labels, the resource types, enabling the hooks and so on and so forth, or exclude the persistent volumes. Just to show you that it's really powerful, because in the end you can configure in a fine-grained way how to restore and backup your data. Let's keep it simple. Let's select a restore name and let's say Nginx. And I'm going to use the same original Kubernetes cluster. I have also the option to rename namespaces, but I just want to keep it short and simple. So clicking on restore, I can start watching the namespaces and at the same time also watching the tenant. And as you can see here, the namespaces are going to be created back and the connection with the tenant abstraction is capped because we are starting from 0 namespaces with the restore of the first, the second, and the third. That's great. Absolutely stunning. So just to be sure that everything is there, we can go in kubeNS solar production, kubectl get deployments, and yeah, we got our Nginx, and the same can be done also for the development. We got Nginx and the solar staging and Nginx. Keep in mind that with CloudCasa and Capsule, you can configure as many tenants you would like, and there is also a nice feature in case your users are not using the authentication based on email address, because as you can see here, the user is matching the email address that we are going to use also on CloudCasa. You can try to override that using the annotations. So looking at the source code, I'm going to enter in the internal CloudCasa annotations, and this is the annotations. My bad, it's the constants. You can override your user using user.cloudcasa.io and using this pattern. So I'm entering the annotation, and before proceeding, let's imagine that we are going to use Alice. If I would like to override the email address that is going to be extracted from the user, what I have to issue is user.cloudcasa.io/the kind, in this case user, in lowercase, and then the name of Alice. And I can put the correct email address, like Dario Tranchitella at alice.gmail.com. And here we are. Everything is fine because I can define the backup and I'm still having access to all the namespaces. In fact, if I try to issue kubectl as Alice, as group, capsule.clastix.io, create namespace solar QA, in a matter of seconds, I should be able to get the list also of the correct namespaces. So let's switch to the root account, and we should see in a matter of seconds that we can define a backup QA for the cluster kind of the new namespace solar QA. If we switch back to Alice, as you can see here, Dario.Tranchitella plus Alice, I can define a backup named QA using kind, and I should be able to see Solar QA here. So essentially, it's a nice feature because in the end, you don't have to go through the UI or configure your integration with CloudCasa. You just need to install Capsule, you just need to get an API key from CloudCasa, install the add-on and play it together. So I'm going to open the Q&A session and I will try to answer your questions in live mode. So thank you so much for your attention. Visit the real, well, not the real, but in real life CloudCasa booth and also the Clastix one, and looking forward to talking with you. So that's been a pleasure. Bye bye.